guys, welcome to Virtuous Vineyards. My name is Rebecca and this is Nancy, and today we're going to talk about some of the things that come up with tween girls and teen girls on a daily basis, decisions they have to make and problems they have to face each and every day. And today we're going to talk about short-term feelings versus long-term goals.
So what does that really mean, Rebecca?
Well, I just think about a lot of times, girls, they get caught up in the daily routine of trying to fit in with their friends and their peers, and sometimes they make decisions that are good for maybe right, or they think that are good for that moment, but when you look over the long term, how they're developing as an individual may not be the very best decisions to make. Things that come up in my mind are let's just say something that we all deal with, procrastination. Say they've got a homework project, and instead of, doing it, they're going out with their friends or, situations like that.
What I think about of short-term versus long-term goals, the first thing that I pop up is a bad haircut. You go on a whim and you say, something, I need something new. I think I'm going to go in and I'm going to chop it all off.
Yeah.
And you cut it off and you feel great first maybe 1 or 2 minutes after your hair is gone.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden you start thinking of all of the repercussions of getting your hair so short.
And that's perfect, because then you have the regret of cutting it, and it's not a quick fix. It's going to take a long time for that hair to grow back out. And so with the bad choices, like for instance, if you lie to your parents and say you're going to go to a girlfriend's house for a party, but you end up going out with your boyfriend instead. You're creating that routine where you're lying, and it's changing the way that you're perceiving what's the right things to do in your life, and you're making those bad choices, and it's going to take a while to reverse that and realize what you were doing was wrong, because each and every time we tell a lie, whether it's to ourselves or to our parents, it just gets easier and easier, and really we're just fooling ourselves in the long run.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. And sometimes it's worse than just getting a bad haircut, because the repercussions and the things that the consequences of those effects are longer than just waiting for your hair to
exactly
grow.
And a lot of times too, girls are put in a situation where they really think a lot of a friend of theirs, mostly I think girlfriends are like this with each other, they think a lot of a friend of theirs, and they make decisions that are bad. They know that they're bad, but all they can think about is keeping that friend at that moment, or maybe being in that popular clique at the moment. But they're really, hurting their soul and the future of who they're becoming by making those decisions. So it's real important to, realize that every single decision that you make is drawing you closer to God, or it's bringing you further away from God, no matter how little that it seems. And you've always got to stay on that right path. And those friends that are truly your friends are going to be your friends if you make the right decision. And the ones who are not your friends, they're going to go, and that's okay. You're going to be better for it.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, that's sometimes easier said than done.
It is,
especially at that moment.
Exactly, and even as an adult, that's so hard. And with any other virtue, it takes practice to do that. If you are getting yourself caught up, in a bad situation, number one, you've got to recognize it. Number two, you've got to realize, that what you're doing is wrong, and you've got to stop it. And then it's, you got to slowly, stop doing those things. So it does. It's not something that you can just be like, okay, let's do this, and turn on a dime like that. It takes practice.
Any recommendations or things that have worked for you in the past that might help you see things a little bit clearly and not be so reactive to certain situations?
For me, myself, I was always the kind of girl who I did not want to disappoint my parents. I was not the rebellious type. The worst thing in the world was hurting my mother's heart, making her worry or getting her upset. So for me, when I made decisions, I would think, how would this affect my mother? And instead of although that was good and it kept me out of a lot of trouble, instead of saying mother, I should have probably been replacing that with God. How is this affecting my relationship with God? will this upset God? Is he going to be disappointed in me? I kind of had the right thought process, but the wrong person in that blank. And I think, if people would just, really consider those things, I think it helps make it easier. And it's a lot easier to stop something before it gets started rather than wait till later when you've already, participated in an activity you shouldn't have been in, allowed something to happen that you didn't step forward and stop it. Bullying, for instance. If one of your friends is getting bullied, it's a lot easier that first time to look at your other friend and be like, hey, wait a minute, you're crossing the line here, than if you let it happen 3 or 4 times, then you're trying to stop it. So just kind of remember that on the front end, it's a lot easier to stop something or to step in and do the right thing than it is after you let it go a long period of time, I think. Mm-hmm. What about you? What kind of deterred you at that age?
Well, unfortunately, I was not that loving or great to my parents at that point in time of my life. But now, because of that, I see all of the repercussions and those spur-of-the-moment decisions and things that maybe I should have kind of stepped back and thought about really how it affected other people. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't. I was kind of a pretty selfish kid. Mm-hmm. Only thinking about, me and what was I going to get out of it. And now seeing it, I see how I've hurt a lot of people, and not just with my parents, but, my friends, my family, and sometimes even people that, just innocent bystanders. I think that maybe what I should have done, hindsight now, is thought of others. And like you said, see how that relationship was going to be affected with not just my loved ones, but with God too.
Exactly. And like you said, whenever you make a bad decision, it doesn't just affect you. It's like a ripple in a pond. It's going to affect other people. So you've got to be aware that that's causing that. I know when the girls were younger, we had this exercise where we were talking about like saying bad words to like hurtful things to people, and they took a piece of paper, and every time somebody said something bad, they started crumpling the paper. So it's like, you're ugly, crunch, you're fat, and you're not smart, and they kept wrinkling it more and more. And then it was like, well, I'm sorry for calling you ugly, and you unwrinkled it. I'm sorry for calling you fat, and you unwrinkled it. Well, you can unwrinkle that paper, but that paper is still, you can see all the marks in it where somebody crammed it up. And you got to think of your soul like that too. Is every time you do something wrong, knowing that it's wrong, you're making that little indentation or that little crease in your soul. And even though you can, be sorry for it, it's when you open that paper up, it's still going to be there. So, and I know there's things that I did when, for instance, like when my grandmother passed away, I was like 12 years old, and all I could think about was it was around Christmas time, and I was so mad because we weren't opening presents at the time we usually wrapped. I didn't even think about my father, who was grieving over his mother. I was like, Daddy, what's wrong with you? Get up, it's time to, to unwrap presents. And I was being so ugly. And here I am, over 40 years old, and I still remember acting that way. I'm so ashamed of that. So, like you said, you just got to really think about others, and that's going to help make the right decisions too. So, yeah. Well, thank you guys for taking the time to watch this show with us. If you found it beneficial and something that you like, or something that you feel like you could share with someone else that would be beneficial, please subscribe, like, and share this with your friends, and we'll see you next time.